Great day, everyone, and welcome to 3CP TV. My name is Yathis Johnson, and I am the founder and president of 3CP, Third Culture People. So 3CP TV is a media resource helping individuals become third culture people, where you learn to embrace the greater variety of cultural identities and skillfully bridge the gap between our differences. So when you watch 3CP TV, you learn how to connect with anyone at any time from anywhere in the world. And today we have Dr. Margaret with us, all the way from Poland. And let me tell you, she is a special person. Again, I met her on one of our social media platforms. And I'm just excited to have her because she's intriguing. When I saw her post and I saw some details about her, I was like, she's a person that I definitely need to contact with a PhD. She has a bachelor in Polish linguistics, a MA in cultural studies, and a PhD in linguistics. And so this is a person I'm like, I've got to hear her story. And, she was doing some work. I think what really grabbed my attention was that she was doing this work on anti-racism. And I was like, wow, there's actually Black people in Poland. And so I was like, I gotta get in touch with her. So Dr. Margaret, would you just say hello to our audience really briefly, and then we'll bring you back up.
Yeah, hello everybody. Thank you, Yatos, for having me here. I'm really happy. You've said a lot already about me, pretty much what I'm doing. I'm an anti-discrimination trainer, a diversity, equity, and inclusion consultant. I own my own business, and I also work as a trainer and a facilitator and a consultant for Cosmodernity Consultants and for other organizations and companies that I'm affiliated with. I also teach at the Tischner University, European University in Krakow in Poland. My work is basically, as you said, around dismantling racism and white supremacy in this part of the world, in Central Europe and in Eastern Europe. And this is also my main research interest. And I've been doing it for 13 years now. So teaching people and also talking to them, engaging in conversations and initiating and raising the awareness of the racial reality that we are living in, because it's not as homogeneous as people usually think it is.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you for that. Wow. Wow. We are so grateful that you have agreed to do this interview with us. Well, let me say this to our audience. Becoming a third culture person will not only grow you personally, but it will grow you professionally, allowing you to expand beyond your wildest dreams, your imagination, and your limitations. And here's what we say at 3CP: we change the way you view diversity, equity, and inclusion everywhere. And so as we continue this conversation with Dr. Margaret, Dr. Margaret, before I forget, and I always do this with my guests, tell us how we can contact you on your social media platforms. It's the best way.
Yeah. You can reach me through LinkedIn or Facebook. This is where I usually am at. I also have an account on Twitter.
Mm-hmm. And would you pronounce your full name for everyone? Because I only called you Dr. Margaret. I didn't attempt to pronounce the last names because I just need to work on it some. Keep it that way.
Sure. So my name is Margaret Amaka Ohia Nowak.
Beautiful, beautiful. And so tell us, Dr. Margaret, How have you been called to use your gifts, talents, and skills to solve a problem or heal a pain in our world?
I think uh, the core place, or the source of my work is really my identity, my cultural background, my identity, my ethnic identity,
Mm,
and my and the environment where I grew up and where I was, my experiences. So I think
mhm,
this was something that really called me to doing what I'm doing with people, because I'm not working only with white people, how to dismantle racism, but also work with Black people, with people of color, how to heal the racial trauma that racism causes. And I guess my experiences growing as a Black child, as a Black girl in Poland in the 90s shaped this kind of path that I then took in terms of my professional choices and decisions. So experiencing, microaggressions, experiencing
mhm,
blatant racism, anti-Black racism in predominantly white society on a daily basis, but also in terms of some, structural compositions, also ways in which, my voice was not heard by many, not only as a
mm,
Black girl when I was, experiencing racism and not being allowed to kind of express my pain and also go through the pain, and being told that I'm oversensitive and kind of,
mhm.
denied my experience, made me actually feel that I have to do something about it. And then my
Wow.
professional career was shaped in a way that allowed me to do so, but it wasn't also an accident. It was also, uh, kind of a mission that I had to, I had to give back to the next generations, but also to people in the world that are also experiencing similar realities.
Mm. Wow. Wow. That is amazing. So you and I, we had a conversation when we initially met, and you were telling me you are biracial. Can you just kind of help our audience understand what that looks like and what that means?
Yeah, so I'm a daughter of a Polish mother and a Nigerian father. I
Mhm.
was born in Poland, grew up predominantly in Poland, lived in Nigeria for some time. And, I'm biracial, but I actually am perceived, especially in Poland, I'm perceived as someone who is monoracial, who's somebody who's Black. But, the minute I speak, because I speak Polish, it's my native language. So
Yeah.
the moment I speak out, then I'm perceived as somebody who is, there is some dissonance. So okay, so you're Black, but you're also a Pole. So it doesn't really, for many people here in this country, it doesn't really make sense, because
Yeah.
they associate Polishness with whiteness
Wow.
automatically. And so I
Wow.
don't really fit into this pattern that they have in their heads. But I identify as biracial because, I feel both Black and white in a way, because I grew up in a white family. Because of
Mm,
family circumstances, we moved back from Nigeria. I was a child, I lived in Nigeria, then we moved back to Poland. So my experience is shaped by these two culture in that way, especially during my childhood and formative years. And up
wow.
to now.
Wow. That is amazing. So what you're helping me understand is that um, America hasn't cornered the market on racism. Racism exists around the world, right? And it has different shapes and forms. Uh, Against Black people, it could be against people based on their class, right? Classism. Uh, there's different types of isms, sexism, and things like that, based on people's this tribalism, right? And so it's based on people's status, that's just different. And so we all wrestle with this in different forms and fashions. Another thing you said that was interesting was, people associated being Polish with being white. And oftentimes, America, being an American, is associated with being white as well. So, but as myself, I identify as an African American. Um, But it's just interesting in how people, there's this dissonance when they hear you speak. Just amazing, just amazing. And you've written quite a bit on these issues. Can you just elaborate on some of your writings and some of the things you're doing in that literature area?
Yeah, sure. So I've contributed to the books as in chapter writing. I've written chapters and articles on ways in which media speak about people of color, particularly Black people in Poland. So how the language also shapes ways in which our brains, kind of perceive. Uh, some issues around race. When I say our, is in Polish. This is my Polish side speaking. So how language reflects stereotypes and prejudices, anti-Black prejudices and racial stereotypes. And this is my main research area, and that's why I've written maybe not a lot, but quite a chunk about it. I don't want to be too modest, but I'm not an academic per se anymore. I teach at university, but my main area is actually working with companies and NGOs and trying to
Good.
help them to change their organizational structures in terms of diversity, equity, and inclusion. But but my pieces are mainly about the discourse, the media discourse, and the language,
Mm,
and which words should be used, which should not be used, and the words that actually are still regarded as neutral, but they are controversial, and they are, they depict or they describe Black people in a negative way, and
mm,
therefore they perpetuate
yes.
stereotypes and prejudices from which discrimination occurs.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Wow, that is powerful. Because oftentimes as a Black person, when I travel the world, I'm always concerned um, how I will be received in that country based on media discourse and what has been exported out about people who look like me through media resources. So linguistics. We just recently had a post asking the question, do you identify as using the term Black, brown, person of color, or African American? And I always struggled with this, especially in my training. I typically stay away from the word Black and white, especially coming from a Christian background. Personally, white is often associated with good, Black is bad. So how do you, as a person who has your academics in this, how do you navigate that, and how do you reconcile this identity of Black and white?
Mhm. Yeah, thanks for this question. I've been asked this question quite many times. So
Mhm,
also with the Christian background of Poland as well, and
mhm.
the symbolism of blackness and whiteness as
Yeah.
well. It is a huge topic here in this country.
Mm,
I like to identify as a Black person, just
mhm.
to kind of emphasize the Blackness. Sometimes if you're denied an identity,
Yeah.
which I, in a way, I am denied here, not my Polishness also, but also sometimes my Blackness, just being said, okay, but you grew up in Poland, so you're not really Black, and also, also by some people of color, also being perceived as somebody who's not really Black. So I really like to emphasize this racial identity, which is driven by this adjective, Black. This is also kind of, a powerful tool for me to just kind of represent where I am. So this is
Mm,
important to me, but I totally hear the dichotomy being between Black and white being kind of dangerous as well. But I also I don't think we should go into the color blindness of the
right.
race, and not say,
Absolutely.
okay, we are all human beings, which is also kind of a philosophy that a lot of people also here in Poland and this part of Europe also kind of cherish, that's let's just ditch the conversation about blackness or about racism at all.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a fan of people of color, even though I use it, but because I'm not a native speaker, it just comes to me automatically. But,
Mm-hmm.
I would prefer not to use words like non-white or people of color that centralize, whiteness and just kind of make the white color of white as a neutral or not color. If you're a person of color, then it's probable that you're not white, right, in the discourse.
Right.
So it means that whiteness is not really is something that is like a neutral domain or something like that. So
Yeah.
I actually try not to avoid blackness and whiteness in my everyday linguistic practice.
Yes. That's very helpful. Thank you so much for that. Wow. This has been huge. So one last question for you. You are an entrepreneur, solo entrepreneur. What inspired you to start your own business?
I think I was tired of kind of meeting everybody's expectations around and losing my focus and losing my goal. Like my
Mm,
ultimate goal is really to help people and to also help people connect with themselves and with others, and to a lot of commissions that I had in the past, or even working at university in academia, required for me that I give up a lot of my principles. And I guess
mm,
I think that like the main idea, the main mission that I really feel kind of like from the heart is really to make this world look better. And this would happen in like kind of I'm sure that this only happens when you really have this clear goal and a dream that you can fulfill by doing what you're called to do, like doing things by
mm.
your own self, and also
Yeah.
not only by your own self, with support by others, but kind of like not at a price of giving up your principles and your core values. And for me, for sure, collectivism, like working collectively, but also listening to your own values, own heart, is very important. I guess
Wow.
this is cultural as well. The collectivism side of me is really
Yes.
strong here, both Nigerian and Polish as well.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. I love teams. So if 3CP, we're a team, and but I love the entrepreneurial aspect of doing what I do because, as you mentioned, you get to live out your passion. You get to do what you're called to do without losing yourself or losing the principles and the convictions that you have to make the world a better place. And that's something that I believe, Margaret, we all have in common who do this type of work. We want to develop a better world where we listen to each other, where we get to learn from each other, we love each other, and we leverage those relationships, for a better world, right? And a safer world. So thank you so much for this interview. It has been enriching to me, inspiring as well. And again, you're the first Black person that I've met in Poland. So
My pleasure. It's my
yeah.
pleasure.
So one last time, can you just help our audience know how they can follow you on social media?
You can follow me on LinkedIn and on Facebook and on Twitter. So I invite you to reach out and to stay in touch.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Thank you, Yatus.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Thanks, everyone, audience, for tuning in to 3CP TV, where you learn how to connect with anyone at any time from anywhere in the world. And we ask you to follow us on YouTube. We want to continue to bring people who are talented, people who are gifted, people who are innovative, bright, intelligent, from all over the world. And Margaret is just an example of that. So thank you all again for tuning in. God bless you.